The chamber is open and full of whispers.
What if Harry Potter had never gone to the Dursleys? What if, on that cold November night in 1981, Albus Dumbledore had made a different choice? What if instead of leaving a 15-month-old orphan on a suburban doorstep with nothing but a letter, he placed Harry Potter with a wizarding family who actually wanted him? This isn't a story about wish fulfillment or easy answers. The Weasleys weren't wealthy. They weren't influential. They already had 6 sons crammed into a magical house held together by love and creative spellwork. Taking in the boy who lived would strain their resources, complicate their lives, and paint a target on their entire family. But they would have done it anyway, because that's who the Weasleys were. Today we're exploring the timeline where Harry Potter grew up, with hand-me-down robes and homemade jumpers, where he learned to fly on Charlie's old broom, where he shared a room with Ron and fought with the twins, and learned what family actually meant before he ever set foot in Hogwarts. This changes everything. Not because the Weasleys could protect Harry better than the Dursleys. Blood protection is blood protection, and we'll address how Dumbledore managed that complication. But because growing up loved fundamentally shapes a person differently than growing up despised. Canon Harry arrived at Hogwarts desperate for belonging, willing to sacrifice himself because he'd never been taught his life had value. He was brave because he had nothing to lose. He was loyal because he was starving for connection. His heroism was born from deprivation. This Harry knows he's loved before he knows he's famous. He has 6 older brothers, a mother who fights for him, a father who teaches him that magic is wonder, not just survival. He's still brave, that's inherent to who Harry is, but his bravery comes from a different place. He fights to protect the family he knows he has, not to earn a family he thinks he doesn't deserve. We'll follow Harry from that first night at the Burrow, through his Hogwarts years, watching how each canonical crisis unfolds when Harry has backup from day one. When he faces the Philosopher's Stone knowing the Weasleys will believe him. When he opens the Chamber of Secrets with Ron as his brother, not just his friend. When Sirius Black escapes and Harry has to reconcile his complicated feelings about Godfather versus found family. This isn't smoother. Growing up with the Weasleys means growing up poor in a society that judges magical worth by vault depth. It means facing prejudice against blood traders, being called a charity case, watching his family struggle financially while he sits on a fortune he's too young to access. It means Malfoy has ammunition he never had in canon, and the Daily Prophet has a story they're eager to twist. But it also means Harry knows how to love before he knows how to hate. Means he understands family loyalty before individual glory. Means when Voldemort returns and war comes, Harry Potter isn't a lone hero. He's a Weasley, and the Weasleys protect their own. So let's explore what happens when the boy who lived grows up in a house where magic is joyful instead of forbidden, where dinner is chaotic instead of silent, where he's Harry before he's ever the chosen one. November 1st, 1981. The Burrow, Devon. Albus Dumbledore stood before Arthur and Molly Weasley's kitchen table at 11:30 at night, while 6 red-haired boys ranging from 10 years to 15 months watched with varying degrees of understanding from the stairs. In his arms, wrapped in blankets and sleeping fitfully, was Harry Potter. "I know what I'm asking," Dumbledore said quietly. "I know the burden this represents." Molly Weasley had been crying since Dumbledore explained what happened to Lily and James. Now she wiped her eyes roughly and stood. "Let me see him." Dumbledore transferred the sleeping child to her arms. Harry stirred, making a small sound of distress. His lightning bolt scar was angry red against his forehead. "Poor love," Molly whispered. "He's so small." 15 months, Dumbledore confirmed. Lily and James named Sirius Black as guardian in their will, but Black has been arrested for their murder and for killing Peter Pettigrew. The Longbottoms are, he paused delicately, unable to take guardianship at present. Arthur Weasley, who knew exactly what unable meant in this context. Frank and Alice Longbottom had been tortured into insanity by Death Eaters just days ago, stood beside his wife. 6 boys meant he knew the weight of a child in his arms. This would be 7. His Aunt Petunia? Arthur asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer. Lily's sister married a muggle named Vernon Dursley. They have a son, Dudley, born in June. They are not receptive to magic. Or to Harry. Not receptive, Molly repeated, voice sharp. Meaning what, precisely? Meaning, I watched them for a full day before making my decision. Vernon Dursley ranted about freaks and abnormality within Harry's hearing. Petunia referred to Lily as that dreadful girl, and expressed no interest in honoring her sister's memory by raising her orphaned son. Dumbledore's voice was carefully neutral, but his eyes were hard behind his half-moon spectacles. Blood protection is powerful magic, and Lily's sacrifice could extend through her sister's blood. But protection purchased at the cost of a child's soul is no protection at all. So you want us to take him, Arthur said slowly. I am asking if you would consider providing Harry with a home, not as the boy who lived, simply as Harry. A child who has lost everything and deserves a family. On the stairs, 10-year-old Bill Weasley held baby Ron and watched his parents with solemn understanding. 9-year-old Charlie gripped the banister tightly. 7-year-old Percy's lips moved slightly as he processed implications. The twins, 5 years old, were uncharacteristically quiet. We don't have much, Molly said, but she was already rocking Harry gently. 6 boys already, and Merlin's beard, Albus, we can barely afford Hogwarts fees as it is. How would we… Harry's parents left him provided for, Dumbledore said. I cannot access those funds for you. That would be inappropriate. But when Harry is of age, he'll have his inheritance. And there are arrangements that can be made. The ministry has a fund for war orphans. I can ensure applications are processed favorably. That's not why we do it, Arthur said sharply. If we take this child, we take him because he needs a family. Not for money. I know that, Arthur. I'm simply telling you that your financial concerns, while valid, need not be an insurmountable obstacle. Molly looked down at Harry. The boy had Lily's eyes. Even closed, she could see the shape of them. James's impossibly messy hair. He made another small sound and shifted in her arms, seeking comfort. She had 6 sons. She'd never planned for 7. They lived in organized chaos as it was, their house held together by liberal application of permanent sticking charms and prayer. Another child meant stretching already thin resources thinner. Meant more meals to cook, more clothes to hand down, more magical accidents to manage. It also meant a child wouldn't grow up unloved. Wouldn't grow up being told magic was freakish or wrong. Wouldn't look in mirrors and see only the orphan instead of the person. Molly Weasley had fought in the First War. Had lost friends, had mourned Lily Potter specifically because they'd been in the same order meetings and Molly had liked the young woman's fierce intelligence and fiercer love for her son. If she could give Lily's child what Lily had died to give him, a chance at life and love, then the answer was obvious. We'll take him, Molly said. Arthur looked at her, then at Dumbledore. The blood protection can be maintained through ward work tied to lawful guardianship, Dumbledore said. It won't be as powerful as living with a blood relative, but combined with the Burrow's existing protections and the Fidelius charm I'll place on this location, it should suffice. Voldemort is gone, but his followers remain. They'll seek revenge if they can find Harry. Then we make sure they can't find him, Arthur said simply. There's another consideration, Dumbledore added. Raising Harry means raising the boy who lived. The press will be relentless. Society will have opinions. Some will say you're profiting from tragedy. Others will question your motives. The name Weasley will become associated with the Potter legacy, and that attention will fall on all your children. On the stairs, Bill shifted Ron to his other hip. He was 10. He understood enough to know this mattered. Understood his parents were choosing to do something difficult because it was right. Let them talk, Molly said. We're not doing this for fame or recognition. We're doing it because a child needs a home and we can give him one. Then it's settled, Dumbledore said. He produced a sheaf of official-looking documents from his robes. I'll need you to sign these guardianship papers. The ministry will process them by morning. I've already discussed this with Millicent Bagnold. She agrees this is the best option given the circumstances. Arthur signed. Molly signed with Harry still in her arms, using wandless magic to hold the quill steady. One more thing, Dumbledore said quietly. Harry is famous. The entire wizarding world knows his name, knows what happened, but he doesn't know. He's 15 months old. He'll remember nothing of tonight, nothing of his parents' deaths. How you tell him his story. When you tell him, that's your choice as his guardians. But eventually he'll need to know the truth. We'll tell him when he's ready, Molly said, when he's old enough to understand. Good, Dumbledore stood. I'll return tomorrow to establish the protective wards. For tonight, just care for him. That's all any child really needs. After Dumbledore left, Molly sat in her kitchen chair with Harry in her arms while Arthur sent the boys back to bed. Bill paused at the bottom of the stairs. Mum, is he staying? Really staying? Really staying, Molly confirmed. Good, Bill said. Then, does he have pajamas? Molly looked down at Harry's blankets. I don't think so. Ron's got extras. I'll get them. Bill disappeared upstairs. Charlie appeared a moment later with a stuffed dragon. He might want this. I mean, if he wakes up somewhere new. Percy brought down a children's book about magic basics. The twins arrived with identical teddy bears, one green, one orange, and announced Harry needed to pick which was better. Watching her sons rally around this new addition to their family, Molly Weasley felt her heart expand in a way she hadn't thought possible. 6 boys had seemed like enough family. 7 felt right. Arthur returned to the kitchen and put a hand on her shoulder. You're sure about this? Completely, Molly said. We're doing the right thing. We are, Arthur agreed. He looked at Harry. He looks like James. Bill, Charlie, and I met the Potters at a ministry function once. James was brilliant, enthusiastic about Muggle artifacts, asked me a dozen questions. Good man. Lily, too. She hexed a Death Eater who tried to curse a Muggle family in Diagon Alley. Didn't even hesitate. They were brave, Molly said. We'll make sure Harry knows that. That his parents died heroes. But not yet, Arthur said gently. Tonight he's just Harry. Tomorrow he's just Harry. For as long as we can give him, he's just our son. Molly adjusted Harry in her arms and stood. I'll put him in Ron's room for tonight. Tomorrow we'll figure out sleeping arrangements properly. With 7 boys, we'll need to expand the house again. I'll start planning the addition, Arthur said. Nothing fancy, but safe and warm. They climbed the stairs together. Ron's nursery was small but cozy, painted in soft yellows, with a mobile of little snitches rotating slowly over the crib. Molly laid Harry down gently, tucking the blankets around him. Harry's eyes opened, green, unfocused, searching for something familiar in this strange place. He made a questioning sound. Shh, Molly whispered, placing her hand on his chest the way she'd done with all her boys when they were small. You're safe now, love. You're safe and you're home. Harry's eyes closed again. His breathing evened out. The lightning bolt scar on his forehead seemed to catch the moonlight, a reminder of magic and sacrifice, and the impossible survival of a 15-month-old child. In the doorway, Arthur watched his wife watch Harry and felt the weight of their decision settle onto his shoulders. They'd just taken responsibility for the most famous child in the wizarding world, for a boy who would grow up with expectations and legends and enemies they couldn't fully protect him from. But they'd also just given an orphan a family, had chosen love over caution, had decided that what Harry needed most wasn't fame or fortune or even perfect safety. It was belonging. Tomorrow, Dumbledore would return with wards and protections. Tomorrow, the Daily Prophet would run the story of where Harry Potter was living. Tomorrow, their lives would change in ways they couldn't predict. Tonight, they'd added a 7th son to the Weasley family. Tonight, Harry Potter became Harry Weasley in every way that mattered. And in his crib, sleeping peacefully for the first time since his parents died, Harry Potter dreamed of red hair and warmth and the sound of someone singing a lullaby that would become the first memory he'd carry forever. The morning came with chaos, not unusual in the Weasley household, but intensified by the arrival of Dumbledore and 2 ministry officials to establish protective wards around the Burrow. Harry woke crying, confused by unfamiliar surroundings. Molly scooped him up immediately, cooing reassurances while simultaneously directing Bill to help Percy get dressed and reminding Charlie that gnomes were not appropriate breakfast companions. There we are, Molly said, bouncing Harry gently. Much better now. Let's get you fed, shall we? She carried Harry downstairs, navigating around ministry officials placing ward stones at strategic points around the property. Dumbledore stood in the kitchen with Arthur, discussing the specifics of the protective enchantments. The Fidelius charm will be keyed to you as secret keeper, Dumbledore was saying. Even those who visited before won't be able to find the Burrow unless you explicitly give them the location. It's not infallible, no magic is, but it's the strongest protection available short of blood wards. And the blood wards? Arthur asked. Maintained through the guardianship paperwork and Harry's willing residence here. As long as he considers the Burrow his home, Lily's sacrifice will extend to this place. Dumbledore noticed Molly entering with Harry. Good morning, Harry. Harry buried his face in Molly's shoulder, overwhelmed by the strange man in purple robes. He's shy, Molly explained, and probably hungry. Everything's overwhelming for him right now. She settled Harry in a conjured high chair. They'd need to get a real one, she noted mentally, and began preparing breakfast. Bill helped by cutting fruit into child-safe pieces. Charlie attempted to entertain Harry by making his dragon toy fly, which resulted in Harry's first smile of the morning. The Daily Prophet arrived via owl during breakfast. Arthur unfolded it and grimaced. Boy who lived placed with Weasley family. In a surprising move, Albus Dumbledore has placed Harry Potter, orphan survivor of you-know-who's attack, with Arthur and Molly Weasley and their 6 sons. The Weasleys, known for their modest means and blood traitor reputation, will receive ministry support for raising the famous child. Blood traitor reputation, Molly repeated, voice sharp. Is that what they're calling basic human decency now? Ignore it, Arthur said. We knew there'd be talk. Talk is one thing. Slander is another. Harry's not even 2 years old, and they're already turning him into a political statement. Dumbledore, who'd been reading over Arthur's shoulder, straightened. The press will be intrusive for a time. I suggest limiting Harry's exposure to public places until the initial furor dies down, perhaps a few months. A few months cooped up in the house? Molly shook her head. That's no life for a child. A few months alive is better than a lifetime dead, Dumbledore said bluntly. Voldemort's followers are still out there. They'll be watching for opportunities. Until we're certain of Harry's safety, caution is warranted. At the high chair, Harry was smashing banana pieces with intense concentration, oblivious to the conversation about his security. Bill, eating his own breakfast at the table, spoke up. I could help watch him when Mum's busy. Me too, Charlie added. I'm good with creatures. Can't be that different with babies. Babies are not creatures, Molly said, but her tone was fond. Though I appreciate the offer, we'll all need to work together to manage 7 children. Percy, who'd been listening intently while reading a book about magical law, looked up. The article says we're receiving ministry support. What does that mean? It means, Arthur said carefully, that the ministry recognizes that raising Harry is a service to the wizarding community. They're providing financial assistance to help with his care. So we're being paid to take care of him? Percy's young face scrunched with concern. That seems transactional. It's not payment for taking him, Molly corrected. It's support for raising him. There's a difference. Harry needs food, clothes, a bed, school supplies eventually. All of that costs money. The ministry is making sure we can provide those things without going bankrupt. Plus, Arthur added, Harry has his own inheritance from his parents. When he's older, he'll have access to those funds. For now, we're managing on ministry support and our own income. It's enough. The twins, who'd been unusually quiet, finally piped up. Is Harry staying forever? Fred asked. Or just until he's grown? George added. Forever, Molly said firmly. Harry is family now. That doesn't change. Later that morning, after the ministry officials finished placing wards, and Dumbledore departed with final instructions about security protocols, Molly faced the practical reality of integrating a 15-month-old into a household designed for 6 boys. Right, she said, surveying her kitchen. We need a proper nursery setup. Bill, you and Charlie help your father with the house expansion. Percy, watch the twins. I'm taking Harry to the village. We need supplies. I thought Dumbledore said to avoid public places, Arthur pointed out. Ottery St. Catchpole isn't exactly Diagon Alley, Molly countered. And I can't run a household without supplies. We'll be careful. She bundled Harry into warm clothes, some of Ron's old things that fit reasonably well, and apparated to the village with him on her hip. The local shop was Muggle-run, which meant no recognition of Harry's famous scar. Molly filled her basket with basics, bottles, nappies, age-appropriate toys, a proper high chair that could be shrunk for transport. Mrs. Henderson at the counter smiled at Harry. What a lovely boy. Is he yours? He is now, Molly said, which was true enough. Back at the Burrow, she found Arthur and the older boys had made surprising progress on the house expansion. Magic made construction faster, though Arthur insisted on doing it properly, rather than just conjuring walls that might collapse later. We'll extend the 2nd floor, Arthur explained, showing her the plans he'd sketched. Give Bill and Charlie their own room since they're oldest. Percy gets the next room. Twins will share. Ron and Harry will share the smallest room for now. When they're older, we can adjust again. Ron and Harry sharing, Molly repeated. She looked at the 2 15-month-olds, Ron in his playpen, Harry on a blanket surrounded by the new toys Molly had bought. That'll be interesting. It was more than interesting. It was transformative. Ron Weasley, who'd been the baby of the family for his entire short life, suddenly had competition for that role. He didn't take it well initially. The first time Harry cried and Molly scooped him up immediately, Ron's face scrunched with fury, and he wailed loud enough to rattle windows. "Oh, Ron," Molly sighed, shifting to pick him up too, one baby on each hip. "You're still my baby." Harry he needs extra love right now. He lost his mummy and daddy. "We have to help him feel safe." Ron, who didn't understand the words but understood the tone, settled slightly. He eyed Harry suspiciously. Harry, oblivious, grabbed a handful of Ron's red hair and tugged. "Gentle," Molly corrected, untangling tiny fingers. "We're gentle with family." By evening, both boys were exhausted. Molly put them in the newly expanded nursery, not quite finished but functional, in cribs placed side by side. Ron fell asleep immediately. Harry lay awake, green eyes tracking the mobile overhead. Molly sat in the rocking chair between the cribs and began to sing. It was an old lullaby, one her own mother had sung. The same one she'd sung to Bill, then Charlie, then Percy, then the twins, then Ron. Now she sang it for Harry, too. Slowly, Harry's eyes drifted closed, his breathing evened. The lightning bolt scar on his forehead seemed to fade slightly in the dim light, becoming just another part of him rather than the defining mark of his survival. In the doorway, Arthur watched his wife with their two youngest sons and felt his heart settle. This was right. This was family. Whatever challenges came from raising the boy who lived, they'd face them the same way they faced everything else, together, with love and with the unshakable belief that family mattered more than fame or fortune or any other consideration. Tomorrow would bring more changes, more challenges, more complications. The press would continue to intrude. Society would continue to judge. Death Eaters would continue to search for revenge. But tonight, the Burrow held 7 children instead of 6. 7 red-headed sons, or 6 red-headed sons and 1 black-haired boy who'd learned to be a Weasley before he learned to be anything else. And in that moment, that was enough. The first year was adjustment. For everyone. Harry learned to walk holding on to Bill's hands, learned to talk in a house where everyone talked over everyone else, learned that magic was wonderful and normal and nothing to hide. He called Molly Mum by 18 months and Arthur Dad shortly after, not because anyone coached him, but because that's what all the other boys called them. Ron and Harry grew up as de facto twins, despite not being related. They shared a room, shared toys, shared everything. Where Ron went, Harry followed. Where Harry went, Ron dragged him back. They fought with the intensity of brothers and made up within minutes because neither could bear being separated. By the time Harry was 3, the Burrow had fully adjusted to accommodate 7 boys. Arthur's house expansion project had become semi-permanent. Rooms appeared as needed, stairs multiplied when boys grew too big to share, and the overall structure developed what Arthur charitably called character and what Molly called a disaster held together by pure stubbornness. The protective wards remained active. Dumbledore visited quarterly to check them, always bringing some small gift for Harry. A children's book about famous witches and wizards, a toy wand that produced harmless sparks once a remembrall that Harry promptly lost within an hour. "He's thriving," Dumbledore observed during one visit, watching 4-year-old Harry chase gnomes out of the garden with Ron while the twins cheered them on. "I made the right choice placing him here. He's a Weasley now," Molly said simply. "Same as the others. We don't treat him different." "That's precisely why it's working," Dumbledore replied. But treating Harry the same as the others meant he grew up with hand-me-downs and homemade meals and the constant awareness that money was tight. He wore Ron's old clothes that had previously been worn by Bill, Charlie, Percy, and both twins. His toys were second-hand. His birthday cakes were lopsided but made with love. He also grew up with 6 older brothers who taught him everything they knew. Bill taught him to read before he was 4, sitting with him for hours working through picture books with patience that surprised everyone. Charlie taught him about magical creatures and snuck him into the chicken coop to watch eggs hatch. Percy taught him rules and structure and the importance of following instructions. Lessons Harry absorbed about half the time. The twins taught him mischief. "See, Harry," Fred explained when Harry was 5. "The trick is to look innocent." Like this, George demonstrated, adopting an expression of pure angelic ignorance, even when you've just put dung bombs in Percy's school bag, especially then. Harry, who worshipped his older brothers with the intensity only a young child could manage, absorbed these lessons too. By age 5, he could look Molly directly in the eye and swear he had no idea how the garden gnomes ended up painted purple. Harry James Potter, Molly said sternly, hands on her hips. Did you and Ron paint those gnomes? No, Mum, Harry said truthfully. The twins had painted them. He and Ron had just watched. Don't lie to me. I'm not lying, Harry protested. We didn't paint them. We watched Fred and George paint them. That's different. Molly closed her eyes and counted to 10. Raising 7 boys was testing her patience in ways she hadn't anticipated. Go to your room, all 4 of you. The older boys had learned to navigate Molly's legendary temper. They knew when to push, when to retreat, when to apologize, and when to stay silent. Harry learned by watching them, learned that Molly's anger was fierce but fair, that she'd never actually hurt them, that 10 minutes after yelling she'd be back to making sure they ate enough dinner. Arthur taught different lessons. He taught Harry about Muggle devices and why they were fascinating, taught him that curiosity wasn't weakness, taught him that being different from pure-blood society, being what they called blood traders, was something to be proud of, not ashamed of. Your mum and I, Arthur explained one evening when Harry was 6 and asking why some kids at the village park had called him a charity case, we believe that all people deserve respect. Muggles, Muggle-borns, half-bloods, pure-bloods, blood doesn't determine worth. Magic ability doesn't determine worth. Character does. Kindness does. Being brave enough to do what's right, even when it's hard, does. Is that why you took me? Harry asked. Because it was right? We took you because you needed a family, Arthur corrected gently. And because your mum, your birth mum, Lily, she was our friend. She and James fought in a war to make the world safer. They died protecting you. The least we could do was make sure you grew up knowing you were loved. Do I have to call them my birth parents? Harry asked. You and Mum are my real parents. Arthur pulled Harry into a hug. We're all your real parents, son. Lily and James gave you life. Your mum and I are raising you. Both things are real. Both things matter. You don't have to choose. These conversations happened more frequently as Harry approached 7. Molly and Arthur had decided to tell him his story gradually, age-appropriate pieces at a time, rather than one devastating revelation when he was older. At 5, they'd told him that his birth parents had died protecting him from a very bad wizard. At 6, they explained that the scar on his forehead was from that night, was a mark of surviving something impossible. At 7, just before his first year at primary school, they sat him down for a longer conversation. There's more you need to know, Molly said gently, with Harry on her lap and Ron pressed against her side. Ron insisted on being present for important Harry conversations. They were brothers and brothers stuck together. About that night, about who you are to the wizarding world. The world thinks you're a hero, Arthur added. They call you the boy who lived because you survived when the bad wizard, his name was Voldemort, tried to kill you. When you defeated him, the war ended. People see you as a symbol of hope. Harry processed this. At 7, he was bright enough to understand implications, even if he didn't grasp all the nuances. People know who I am? In the magical world, yes. You're famous, Harry. Very famous. That's why we've kept you relatively quiet, avoided taking you to Diagon Alley or other magical places where you'd be recognized. We wanted to give you a normal childhood for as long as possible. But I'm not normal, Harry said slowly. I'm the boy who lived. I'm famous for something I don't even remember. You're also our son, Molly said firmly. You're Ron's brother. You're part of this family. The fame is something that happened to you, not something that defines you. Will people treat me different when they know? Some will, Arthur admitted. Some will expect you to be heroic or special or magical beyond your years. Some will resent you for the fame. Some will try to use you for their own purposes. That's why we're telling you now, so you can be prepared. Harry was quiet for a moment. Then, I don't want to be famous. I just want to be Harry. Then that's who you'll be, Molly said. Here, at home with us. You're just Harry, our son, Ron's brother. That doesn't change no matter what the outside world thinks. Ron, who'd been listening intently, piped up, and if anyone's mean to Harry because he's famous, I'll hex them. You will not? Molly said sternly, but she was smiling. I'll help, Harry offered. Neither of you will hex anyone. Use your words, not your wands. The conversation ended with both boys promising to be good, a promise that lasted approximately until the next morning when they accidentally released several dozen garden gnomes into Percy's bedroom, the years before Hogwarts passed in controlled chaos. Bill went off to Hogwarts, then Charlie followed. 2 years later, Percy started when Harry was 8, already insufferably proud of being a prefect in training. The twins went when Harry was 9, and the Burrow became noticeably quieter, though not actually quiet because twins could cause chaos long distance through pranks that activated weeks after they'd planted them. Harry and Ron were the youngest, the ones still at home, the last two brothers navigating childhood together. They were inseparable. Where one went, the other followed. They shared everything: clothes, books, even the same taste in sweets from the village shop. They also shared the same magic accidents. At 7, Harry accidentally levitated Ron 3 feet off the ground during an argument. At 8, Ron turned Harry's hair temporarily orange after Harry beat him at wizard chess. At 9, they combined accidental magic and blew up the garden shed while trying to rescue a Weasley that turned out to be a very angry cat. "How?" Molly demanded, staring at the smoking ruins. "Did you manage this?" "We didn't mean to," Harry said. "We were trying to help," Ron added. "The cat was stuck," they said in unison. "The cat," Molly said slowly, "is currently sitting in that tree looking extremely pleased with itself. Indeed, the previously stuck cat was lounging on a branch, licking its paws with evident satisfaction. Molly sent them to their room but couldn't quite hide her smile. Her boys were disasters, but they were her disasters. And Harry fit into that chaos so perfectly, it was like he'd always been there. The summer before Harry and Ron's first year at Hogwarts brought changes. Hogwarts letters arrived simultaneously. 2 letters, 2 boys, 2 sets of school supplies that would strain the budget considerably even with ministry support. Arthur sat down with the Gringotts statements and did calculations. Molly watched over his shoulder and sighed. "We can do this," she said. "We'll manage. Second-hand robes, second-hand books, 1 wand each, because those can't be hand-me-downs," Arthur itemized. "Ron will need everything. Harry needs everything. We can stretch the budget if we're careful." "I hate that we have to be careful," Molly said quietly. "I hate that our boys have to wear second-hand everything while Harry's sitting on a vault full of gold we can't access. He's 11, too young for vault access even with guardian permission. The ministry controls his finances until he's of age." "I know. I just wish," Molly trailed off. She didn't wish Harry weren't famous or weren't the Potter heir. She just wished raising 7 boys didn't require quite so many difficult financial decisions. When they told Harry and Ron about the school supply list, both boys were ecstatic. "Hogwarts," Ron crowed. "We're actually going to Hogwarts." "Together," Harry added. "Same year, same time." "We'll be in the same house, right?" "Houses are sorted by personality," Arthur explained. "You might end up in different ones. Harry, your parents were both Gryffindor. Ron, all the Weasleys have been Gryffindor for generations. But the Sorting Hat chooses based on who you are, not your family history." "We'll be in the same house," Ron said confidently. "Harry and I do everything together." They were confident until they actually arrived at Diagon Alley for school shopping and were confronted with the reality of Harry's fame. Molly had taken them during off hours, early morning on a Wednesday, hoping to avoid crowds. It didn't work. The moment Harry stepped through the leaky cauldron, people recognized him. The scar was distinctive, and the combination of black, messy hair with a Weasley family was unmistakable. "That's Harry Potter," someone whispered. "The boy who lived. Raised by the Weasleys, can you imagine? Poor thing, growing up with blood traitors." Harry froze. Ron grabbed his hand. "Ignore them," Ron muttered. "Just like Mum said. Ignore them and keep walking." They made it to Gringotts first. Molly had planned this carefully. Get gold for school supplies, then move quickly through the shops before word spread too far that Harry Potter was in Diagon Alley. But at Gringotts, a goblin recognized Harry's name and insisted on taking him to his vault personally. "The Potter vault is one of our oldest," the goblin said. "You should see your inheritance, Mr. Potter." Harry didn't want to see his inheritance. He wanted to get his school supplies and go home. But Molly nodded permission, and the goblin led Harry and Ron, because Ron refused to be separated, down into the depths of Gringotts. Vault 687 contained more gold than Harry had ever imagined existed. Mounds of galleons, stacks of sickles, piles of cutches, ancient objects that glittered with magic. A letter addressed to Harry in handwriting he recognized from the few photos Molly had shown him. Lily's handwriting. "This is all yours," the goblin said. "Your parents left you well provided for." Harry stared at the gold, then at Ron, whose entire face had gone red. Then at the letter in Lily's handwriting that he wasn't ready to read yet. I don't want it, Harry said quietly. Harry, Ron started. I mean, I do, but I don't. My parents died for this gold? No, my parents died for me, and I got the gold because they died. That's not fair. Life isn't fair, Mr. Potter, the goblin said, not unkindly. But the gold is yours regardless. You can choose what to do with it when you're of age. For now, take what you need for school. They took a small pouch of gold, enough for supplies with plenty left over. The goblins sealed the vault and led them back up. In the cart, Ron was quiet. You okay? Harry asked. That's a lot of gold, Ron said. Yeah. We live in a house held together by permanent sticking charms, and you've got more gold than I'll ever see in my entire life. Ron, it's weird, Ron interrupted. I'm not mad, just weird. You're my brother, and you're rich, and I'm not, and that's just how it is. The gold doesn't matter, Harry said firmly. We're still brothers. This doesn't change anything. Doesn't it? Ron asked, and Harry didn't have a good answer. Shopping was uncomfortable after that. Harry could afford the best of everything. New robes, new books, top-quality supplies. Instead, he bought second-hand, because Ron was buying second-hand and matching mattered more than quality. At Ollivander's, they each got their wands. Ron's was Charlie's old wand, 14 inches, ash and unicorn hair, reliable but not perfectly suited to him. Harry's was new, chosen by the wand itself, 11 inches, holly and phoenix feather, the brother wand to Voldemort's own, though Ollivander didn't mention that detail. Curious, Ollivander muttered. Very curious. What's curious? Harry asked. The wand chooses the wizard, Mr. Timiacchio. Potter, your wand has chosen you for reasons I suspect we'll only understand years from now. Use it well. They left the shop with Harry's wand practically vibrating with magic, and Ron's wand feeling heavy and wrong in his hand. Another difference between them. Harry's wand was perfect. Ron's was adequate. Back at the Burrow that evening, Harry cornered Molly in the kitchen. Can I buy Ron a new wand? With my gold? His doesn't fit right. Molly's expression softened and broke simultaneously. Oh, Harry, that's very sweet, but no. Ron needs to use Charlie's wand for first year. We can't afford a new one right now, but I can afford it. It's my gold. It's your gold that you can't access freely, and even if you could, we wouldn't take it. Ron needs to learn to work with what he has. It builds character. It builds resentment, Harry muttered. Perhaps, Molly admitted, but that's between Ron and us, not Ron and you. You're brothers. You love each other. Sometimes that means accepting that life isn't equal or fair. And Harry didn't like that answer. He also didn't have a better solution. The remaining weeks before Hogwarts were tense. Harry and Ron practiced magic with their new wands. Harry's spells came easily, naturally, while Ron struggled to make Charlie's wand cooperate. The inequality festered beneath their usual closeness. 3 days before term started, they had their first real fight. You don't get it, Ron snapped after another failed levitation charm. Everything's easy for you. Perfect wand, perfect magic, everyone knows who you are. I didn't ask for any of that, Harry shot back. You think I want to be famous? You think I want people staring at me? I'd trade it all to be normal like you. You mean poor like me? That's not what I meant. Yes, it is. You've got a vault full of gold and I've got second-hand everything. Even my wand isn't mine. It's Charlie's. We're not the same, Harry. We never were. We're brothers, Harry said desperately. That makes us the same. We're not brothers, Ron said cruelly. Not really. You're Harry Potter. I'm just Ron Weasley. The difference matters. He stormed out. Harry stood in their shared room, chest tight with an emotion he couldn't name. Molly found him an hour later, still standing in the same spot. Ron told me what happened. He's right, Harry said quietly. We're not really brothers. I'm just the charity case you took in. Harry James Potter, you look at me right now. Molly's voice was stern. Harry looked. You are my son. You're Ron's brother. You're part of this family in every way that matters. Ron is young and scared and taking out his insecurity on you because you're safe. You can handle his anger because you love him. That's what brothers do. But he's not wrong. I am different. I am rich. I am famous. He's not. And Bill is tall, and Charlie is athletic, and Percy is brilliant, And the twins are creative, and Ron is loyal, and you're brave. Every one of my sons is different. Those differences don't negate family. Then why does it feel like they do? Molly pulled Harry into a hug. Because you're 11 and he's 11, and neither of you knows how to navigate complicated feelings yet. You'll work it out. You always do. They did work it out eventually. Ron apologized 2 days later, awkward and stumbling over words. Harry apologized for not understanding why the money thing mattered. They didn't solve the fundamental inequality between them. Harry was still rich and famous while Ron was still neither, but they remembered they loved each other more than they resented each other. September 1st arrived with typical Weasley chaos. Molly shepherded 7 boys through King's Cross. Bill and Charlie were already graduated and moved out, but they'd come to see their youngest brothers off. Percy was returning for his 4th year. The twins were 3rd years. Harry and Ron were starting fresh. Platform 9 3/4 was crowded. Molly fussed over all of them, reminding Percy to set a good example, and warning the twins that one more incident involving dung bombs and she'd be receiving a howler from McGonagall. She saved Harry and Ron for last. "Look after each other," she said, pulling both boys into a hug. "Stick together. Remember you're brothers no matter what house you're sorted into." "We'll be in Gryffindor," Ron said confidently. "Probably," Harry agreed. "Just remember that houses don't define you," Arthur added. "Your character defines you." They boarded the train together, found an empty compartment, waved to their parents until the train pulled away. For the first time in their lives, Harry and Ron were heading into something completely unknown without their entire family as backup. "Nervous?" Ron asked. "Terrified," Harry admitted. "Good. Me too." The train journey passed in a blur. They met Hermione Granger, a Muggle-born girl who'd already memorized half their textbooks and informed them that they were doing everything wrong. They met Neville Longbottom, a round-faced boy who'd lost his toad. They encountered Draco Malfoy, a pale boy with white blonde hair who sneered at Ron's robes and tried to befriend Harry. "You'll want to be careful with the company you keep, Potter," Draco said, eyeing Ron with distaste. "I can help you there." "Thanks," Harry said coldly, "but I already know who my friends are, and you're not one of them." Draco's face flushed. "You'll regret that. My father will hear about your attitude." "Good," Harry said. "Tell him Harry Potter says hi." After Draco left, Ron looked at Harry with something like awe. "That was brilliant." "That was stupid," Hermione corrected. "You just made an enemy of the Malfoy family." "The Malfoys were already my enemies," Harry pointed out. "Lucius Malfoy was a Death Eater. He served Voldemort. You think he doesn't already hate me?" "You said his name," Neville whispered. "You know whose name?" "Voldemort," Harry said clearly. "He's dead. His name can't hurt us." Hermione and Neville both flinched. Ron just grinned. "See? This is why Harry's my brother. He's not afraid of anything." Harry didn't correct him. Admitting fear would have ruined the moment. But privately, as the train carried them toward Hogwarts and destiny, and a life he couldn't fully predict, Harry was afraid of quite a lot. He was afraid of not living up to expectations, afraid of disappointing his family, afraid of the famous name he'd inherited, and the impossible legacy he was supposed to honor. Afraid that Ron was right. That being Harry Potter meant being fundamentally different from being a Weasley, and someday he'd have to choose between the two. But for now, he had Ron beside him, and Hogwarts ahead of him, and a family that loved him, waiting for him to come home for Christmas. For now, that was enough. The castle appeared across the lake, lit from within, more beautiful than anything Harry had ever imagined. First years crossed in boats, gasping at their first sight of Hogwarts, and Harry felt his breath catch. This was it. This was where his story really began. Not as the boy who lived. Not as the Potter heir. As Harry, just Harry. A Weasley boy who happened to be famous, starting his first year at Hogwarts with his brother at his side, and magic in his blood and absolutely no idea how dramatically his life was about to change. The sorting ceremony was everything and nothing, like Harry had imagined. The Great Hall was magnificent, ceiling showing night sky, candles floating in midair. 4 longhouse tables packed with students watching the first years with varying degrees of interest. Harry spotted Percy at the Gryffindor table, sitting ramrod straight and looking insufferably pleased to be prefect. The twins were further down, already whispering to nearby students and probably planning chaos. Professor McGonagall stood at the front with a battered wizard's hat on a stool. When I call your name, she announced, you will put on the hat and be sorted into your houses. The hat sang a song about the 4 houses and their qualities. Harry barely heard it. He was too busy being aware that every eye in the hall was on him. Word had spread on the train. Harry Potter was starting Hogwarts. The boy who lived was standing in this very room, about to be sorted. Names were called alphabetically. Abbott, Hannah, became a Hufflepuff. Boot, Terry, went to Ravenclaw. Granger, Hermione? The bossy girl from the train sat under the hat for nearly 4 minutes while it debated between Ravenclaw and Gryffindor. Finally, Gryffindor. Hermione ran to the Gryffindor table, looking relieved. More names. Longbottom Neville. Took forever to sort before the hat shouted Gryffindor. Neville stumbled to the table, face red with relief. Malfoy, Draco, was sorted into Slytherin before the hat even touched his head. Then, Potter, Harry. The whispers that had been constant background noise erupted into actual gasps. Every head turned. Harry walked to the stool, acutely aware that this single moment would define how Hogwarts saw him. The hat settled over his eyes. Well, 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 a voice said in his mind. Harry Potter, I've been waiting for you. Difficult, very difficult. Please put me in Gryffindor, Harry thought desperately. My whole family is Gryffindor. I need to be with Ron. Your family? The hat mused. Yes, the Weasleys have been good to you, raised you well, given you loyalty and love. But Harry Potter, you're more than just a Weasley. You have your mother's intelligence. Ravenclaw would suit you. Your father's daring, Gryffindor, obviously. But I also sense something else. Ambition. Cunning. A willingness to do what's necessary rather than what's right. Slytherin could make you great. Not Slytherin, Harry thought firmly. Anything but Slytherin. Why not Slytherin? You'd do well there. Make real friends. Friends who could help you navigate the fame and the pressure. Because Voldemort was Slytherin. Because Death Eaters were Slytherin. Because if I'm sorted into Slytherin, everyone will think I'm dark. Ah, but that's reputation talking, not reality. Slytherin has produced dark wizards, yes, but also great witches and wizards who've done tremendous good. Your hesitation comes from fear of others' opinions, not genuine objection to Slytherin values. I'm a Weasley, Harry insisted. Weasleys are Gryffindor. I belong with my family. You're also a Potter. Potters choose their own path. So Harry Potter Weasley, where shall I put you? Harry thought of Ron waiting at the Gryffindor table, thought of disappointing Molly and Arthur if he ended up in Slytherin, thought of the legacy he'd inherited from parents he never knew. Gryffindor, he thought. Please, I need to be in Gryffindor. The hat was quiet for a long moment. Then, with what sounded like reluctance, very well. You've chosen loyalty over ambition. Let's hope you don't regret it.
Gryffindor!
The last word was shouted aloud. The Gryffindor table erupted in cheers. Harry pulled off the hat and walked to his house table in a daze. Percy was standing, applauding loudly. The twins were whooping. And Ron looked relieved and proud and grateful all at once. Harry sat beside Ron and tried to ignore the stares from every other table. Knew you'd be Gryffindor, Ron said. We're brothers. We stick together. Weasley, Ronald. Ron's sorting was quick. The hat barely touched his head before shouting Gryffindor. He joined Harry with a wide grin. See? Ron said. Told you. Same house, just like I said. The feast was incredible. More food than Harry had seen in his life, appearing magically on golden plates. He ate until he was uncomfortably full while fielding questions from nearby Gryffindors who all wanted to know about the boy who lived. Is it true you defeated you-know-who? Were you really raised by the Weasleys? What's the scar feel like? Harry answered minimally, uncomfortably with the attention. Ron ran interference when he could, redirecting conversations or claiming Harry was tired. After the feast, Percy led the first years to Gryffindor Tower. The common room was warm and welcoming, all red and gold and comfortable furniture. Percy gave a speech about house pride and academic excellence that Fred and George mocked mercilessly from across the room. Boys' dormitories are upstairs, Percy finished. Harry, Ron, you'll be sharing with Dean Thomas, Seamus Finnegan, and Neville Longbottom. The dormitory was circular, with 5 four-poster beds. Harry's trunk was already there, placed beside Ron's. Someone had arranged them next to each other, probably Percy, trying to help. This is brilliant, Ron said, flopping onto his bed. We're at Hogwarts. Actually at Hogwarts? Yeah, Harry agreed, sitting on his own bed. Through the window, he could see the lake gleaming in moonlight, the forbidden forest dark beyond. It's brilliant. It was also overwhelming. Harry had never been away from the Burrow for more than a day or two. Had never slept somewhere other than his room with Ron in the bed beside him. Had never been in a place where people knew his name but not his actual self. You okay? Ron asked, noticing Harry's expression. Just weird, Harry said. Being here. Everyone knowing who I am but not knowing me at all. They'll get to know you, Ron said confidently. And then they'll realize you're just Harry, not the boy who lived. Just our Harry. You're Harry, Harry repeated quietly. Well, yeah, you're a Weasley, that makes you ours. It was such a Ron thing to say, simple, direct, utterly confident. Harry felt some of the tension ease from his shoulders. Classes started the next day and proved both easier and harder than expected. Easier because Harry had grown up surrounded by magic, understanding spells and potions from years of watching his brothers practice. Harder because expectations were sky high, and every professor seemed to be watching him for signs of brilliance or failure. Transfiguration with Professor McGonagall went well. She was strict but fair, and Harry managed to turn his match into a needle on the first try. The only student besides Hermione to succeed. Excellent work, Mr. Potter, McGonagall said, and Harry felt a warm glow of pride. Charms with Professor Flitwick was fun. The tiny professor was enthusiastic about magic, and delighted when Harry demonstrated the levitation charm properly. But potions with Professor Snape was a disaster from the first minute. Snape swept into the dungeon classroom like a particularly menacing bat, black robes billowing behind him. He didn't introduce himself or welcome them, just launched directly into a speech about the subtle art of potion making. Then his eyes landed on Harry. Ah, yes, Snape said softly. Harry Potter, our new celebrity. The classroom went silent. Harry felt everyone staring at him again. Tell me, Potter, what would I get if I added powdered root of asphodel to an infusion of wormwood? Harry had no idea. He'd grown up in a magical household, but Molly had never taught them advanced potions. I don't know, sir. Tut-tut, fame clearly isn't everything. Let's try again. Where would you look if I told you to find me a Bezoar? I don't know, sir. What is the difference between monkshood and wolfsbane? I don't know, sir, Harry repeated, face burning with humiliation. Clearly fame isn't everything, Snape said, writing on the board. For your information, Potter, asphodel, and wormwood make a sleeping potion so powerful it is known as the Draught of Living Death. A Bezoar is a stone taken from the stomach of a goat and will save you from most poisons. As for monkshood and wolfsbane, they are the same plant, which also goes by the name of aconite. Well, why aren't you all copying this down? Harry spent the rest of the lesson being ignored by Snape, while Hermione's hand shot up for every question. He managed to brew an acceptable cure for boils, but Snape didn't acknowledge it. When Neville's cauldron melted and boils erupted across his face, Snape blamed Harry for not preventing it. Potter should have told him not to add the quills before removing from heat, Snape said coldly. 2 points from Gryffindor for your inability to help a classmate. That's not fair, Ron protested. Another point from Gryffindor for talking back, Weasley. Harry left potions feeling angry and confused. What had he done to make Snape hate him already? He's awful, Ron declared at lunch. Absolute git, taking points for no reason. There was a reason, Hermione said primly. You did talk back. Because he was being unfair to Harry. Maybe Harry should have known the answers. How was I supposed to know? Harry demanded. I'm 11. We've had 1 day of potions. I knew, Hermione said. I read the textbook. Good for you, Ron said sarcastically. Not all of us memorized textbooks for fun. They bickered through lunch. Harry barely ate, too upset by Snape's treatment. It wasn't just the lost points or the public humiliation. It was the feeling that Snape had decided to hate him before they'd even met. The week settled into routine. Classes, homework, meals in the Great Hall. Harry and Ron were inseparable, joined occasionally by Hermione when she wasn't lecturing them about studying more. Neville tagged along sometimes, grateful for friends who didn't mock his clumsiness. Flying lessons started in September. Harry had been flying since he was 6. Charlie had taught him on an old clean sweep, and he'd been practicing ever since. When Madame Hooch told them to mount their brooms, Harry's rose to his hand immediately. Good, Potter, Hooch said, surprised. The lesson progressed smoothly, until Neville's broom rocketed into the air with him clinging desperately to it. He fell, landing hard enough to break his wrist. Hooch took him to the hospital wing with strict instructions that no one was to fly while she was gone. Naturally, Draco Malfoy immediately grabbed Neville's Remembrall and flew into the air. "Come get it, Potter!" Draco taunted. Harry shouldn't have risen to the bait, should have ignored Malfoy and reported him to Hooch, but he was angry at Snape's unfair treatment, at Malfoy's constant sneering, at the unfairness of being famous for something he didn't remember. He mounted his broom and shot into the air. What followed was impressive flying. Harry chased Malfoy across the grounds, dodging and weaving with instinctive skill. When Malfoy threw the Remembrall, Harry dove after it in a move Charlie had taught him called a Wronski feint, catching it inches from the ground. He landed to find Professor McGonagall watching with an expression he couldn't read. "Potter, come with me." Harry's heart sank. He'd broken the rules. He was probably going to be expelled on his first week. McGonagall led him inside and up several staircases, finally knocking on a classroom door. A tall boy with a Gryffindor badge answered. "Wood, I found you a seeker," McGonagall said. What followed was a blur. Oliver Wood, the Gryffindor Quidditch captain, tested Harry's flying and pronounced him natural talent. McGonagall bent the first-year rule and put Harry on the team. By dinner, Harry was the youngest house player in a century. Ron was ecstatic. "Seeker! You're going to be brilliant." "First years never make the team," Hermione said. "How did you manage it?" "I caught something falling from 50 feet up," Harry said, still dazed. McGonagall saw. The excitement lasted until the next potions class, when Snape pulled Harry aside after everyone left. "Fame has gone to your head already, Potter," Snape said silkily. "Making the Quidditch team in your first year. Getting special treatment. Tell me, do you think the rules apply to you?" "I didn't ask for special treatment," Harry protested. "No, you simply get it because you're the boy who lived. Because you're famous. Because everyone overlooks your rule-breaking in favor of your celebrity." Snape leaned closer. "I will not overlook anything, Potter. One toe out of line and I will ensure you're removed from that team." "Why do you hate me?" Harry blurted. "What did I do?" Snape's expression flickered with something complicated. "You exist, Potter. That's quite enough." Harry left the classroom shaking with anger and confusion. What did that even mean? Over the following weeks, he learned that Snape's hostility was consistent and unwavering. Every potions class brought criticism, lost points, unfair treatment. Snape seemed to go out of his way to make Harry miserable. "He's got it out for you," Ron said, after another brutal lesson. "Dunno why, but he definitely hates you specifically." "Maybe he knew my parents," Harry suggested. "Maybe they did something to him." "Your parents were heroes," Ron said loyally. "If Snape hates them, that's his problem." Quidditch became Harry's escape. Flying was freedom, up in the air. He wasn't the boy who lived or Harry Potter, or a disappointment to Snape. He was just the seeker, focused on catching the snitch, working with his team. Oliver Wood was an intense captain, but a good teacher. He drilled Harry relentlessly on seeker tactics, and Harry absorbed everything eagerly. "You're going to be the best seeker Gryffindor's had in years," Wood said after one practice. "Natural talent plus hard work, that's unbeatable." Harry's first match was against Slytherin in November. The stands were packed, the energy electric. Harry spotted his family in the crowd, Percy waving a banner, the twins shooting off red and gold fireworks, and at the very front, Ron cheering louder than anyone. The match started well. Harry spotted the snitch within minutes, but Slytherin's seeker Marcus Flint blocked him roughly. The game devolved into violent chaos as Slytherin played dirty. Then something went wrong with Harry's broom. It bucked and twisted, trying to throw him off. He clung desperately to it, 50 feet in the air, with no idea what was happening. In the stands, Hermione had noticed Professor Snape muttering something, eyes fixed on Harry. She didn't hesitate, ran along the row, whispered incendio, and set Snape's robes on fire. The fire broke Snape's concentration. Harry's broom stabilized. He pulled himself back on, spotted the snitch, and dove. His hand closed around it just as he hit the ground, rolling to absorb impact. Gryffindor won. Harry was mobbed by his team, by his housemates, by everyone celebrating the victory. But he couldn't shake the feeling that something wrong had happened, something more than just Slytherin playing rough. "Hermione says Snape was cursing your broom," Ron told him later in the common room. "She saw him muttering and set his robes on fire to break the curse." "Snape tried to kill me?" Harry asked, disbelieving. Looked like it, Hermione said seriously. I've read about broom curses. They require constant eye contact and muttering. Snape was doing both. But why would he try to kill me? Maybe he's working for you-know-who's followers, Ron suggested. Maybe he wants revenge for you-know-who's defeat. They spent the next weeks investigating Snape, which led them to discover he was protecting something on the 3rd floor, something involving a 3-headed dog, a trapdoor, and layers of magical protections. He's after the Philosopher's Stone, Hermione realized after extensive library research. Nicholas Flamel's stone. It makes the elixir of life, grants immortality. If someone wants to bring you-know-who back, they'd need that. We have to tell Dumbledore, Harry said. And say what? Ron asked. We think Professor Snape is evil based on him being mean and one Quidditch incident? No proof. So we get proof, Harry decided. What followed was increasingly risky investigation. They discovered the stone was protected by multiple enchantments created by different professors. They learned Snape was limping after Halloween, suggesting he'd been bitten by the 3-headed dog. They pieced together that someone was planning to steal the stone. Christmas brought a brief respite. Most students went home, but Harry and Ron stayed at Hogwarts. The Burrow was too small for everyone during the holidays, and Molly had sent word that Bill and Charlie were coming home, so the younger boys could have a proper Christmas at school. Christmas morning brought presents. Ron gave Harry a chocolate frog. Hermione gave him a book on famous seekers. The twins sent a toilet seat. Percy sent a letter reminding him to uphold Gryffindor honor. From Molly and Arthur came a package, containing a hand-knitted sweater in Gryffindor red and gold, homemade fudge, and a letter. Dear Harry, we know you're having a brilliant time at Hogwarts. Percy writes every week telling us about your achievements and your rule-breaking. Really, Harry, flying at 50 feet? We're so proud of you. This is your first Christmas away from the Burrow. We miss you terribly, but you're where you're supposed to be, learning and growing and making us proud. Remember that you're a Weasley no matter what name you carry. Remember that we love you. Come home safe for summer. Love, Mum and Dad. Harry held the letter and felt tears prick his eyes. He missed the Burrow, missed the chaos of 7 boys, missed Molly's cooking, missed Arthur's terrible jokes about Muggle devices. You okay? Ron asked, eating chocolate frogs on his bed. Yeah, Harry said. Just miss home. Me too. But hey, at least we've got each other, right? Right. That night, Harry tried on his new sweater and felt like himself again. He was a Gryffindor, yes. The boy who lived, yes. But fundamentally, always, he was a Weasley. And when danger came, when they realized someone was going after the stone that very night, it was as Weasleys that Harry and Ron faced it together. They recruited Hermione and Neville, made their way past the 3-headed dog Fluffy, through the Devil's Snare, past the flying keys, and to the giant chess set where Ron proved his strategic brilliance by sacrificing himself to let Harry continue. I have to stop them, Harry said, kneeling beside Ron's unconscious form. I have to protect the stone. You're the better player anyway, Ron mumbled, barely conscious. Go. Win. That's what Weasleys do. Harry went forward alone, through the troll chamber and the potions puzzle, finally reaching the Mirror of Erised and the person trying to steal the stone. Not Snape. Professor Quirrell. You? Harry breathed. Me, Quirrell agreed, no longer stuttering. Snape was so suspicious that everyone watched him. No one suspected poor, nervous Professor Quirrell. The confrontation that followed taught Harry that evil doesn't always announce itself clearly, that assumptions can be wrong, that protecting what matters requires sacrifice. When Quirrell tried to kill him, when Voldemort's voice spoke from the back of Quirrell's head, when Harry's mother's protection burned Quirrell's skin at every touch, Harry learned what love meant in its purest form. He woke in the hospital wing 3 days later with Dumbledore sitting beside his bed and Ron asleep in the next bed over. The stone? Harry asked. Destroyed, Dumbledore confirmed. Nicholas Flamel and I agreed it was safer that way. And Quirrell? Dead. Voldemort's spirit fled when you defeated Quirrell. You saved the stone, Harry. You saved many lives. Ron helped, Harry said. He won the chess game. I couldn't have done it without him. Yes, Dumbledore said gently. Family often makes us stronger than we could be alone. When Harry was released from the hospital wing, he found Ron already up and boasting to anyone who'd listen about their adventure. Hermione was lecturing both of them about the rules they'd broken. Neville was just relieved everyone survived. The end of term brought the House Cup ceremony. Slytherin was ahead, Gryffindor a close second. Then Dumbledore awarded last-minute points to Harry for protecting the stone, to Ron for the chess game, to Hermione for keeping her head, to Neville for standing up to his friends. Gryffindor won. The Great Hall erupted in celebration. Percy looked prouder than Harry had ever seen him. The twins set off celebratory fireworks, and Ron grabbed Harry in a hug that lifted him off his feet. "We did it," Ron shouted. "Weasleys win." And Harry, surrounded by his housemates and his brothers and the family he'd chosen and been chosen by, felt something settle in his chest. He was Harry Potter, the boy who lived. But more than that, more fundamentally than fame or prophecy or survival, he was a Weasley, and that would always matter most. The summer after first year should have been restful. It wasn't. Harry returned to the Burrow to find it somehow more chaotic than when he'd left it. Bill was home from his curse-breaking job in Egypt, bringing stories and exotic gifts. Charlie was between dragon-handling assignments in Romania. Percy had achieved 12 OWLs and wouldn't stop mentioning it. The twins had perfected several new products for their joke shop ambitions. Ron was still riding high on their Quirrell adventure, and Harry was famous all over again. The Daily Prophet had run extensive coverage of The Boy Who Lived Saves the Philosopher's Stone. Photos of Harry leaving the hospital wing, quotes from Dumbledore about Harry's bravery, speculation about what this meant for Voldemort's potential return. "They're making you sound like some kind of hero," Ron said, reading the paper over breakfast. "Which you are, obviously. But they make it sound like you did everything alone." "I didn't do it alone," Harry said firmly. "You were there. Hermione was there. Neville was there. We all did it together." "The Prophet doesn't care about that," Percy said, adjusting his new prefect badge. He'd been made head boy and literally wore the badge to breakfast. "They care about narrative. The boy who lived defeating evil again, that sells papers." "I hate it," Harry muttered. Molly reached over and squeezed his shoulder. "I know, love. But you did save the stone. You did stop Quirrell. You have every right to be proud." "I'm not proud. I'm tired." And he was. Tired of being Harry Potter, the boy who lived. Tired of people staring and whispering. Tired of expectations he hadn't asked for and couldn't escape. The summer brought a brief respite from fame, but not from challenges. Harry's vault at Gringotts remained full of gold he couldn't fully access. The Weasleys remained stretched thin financially despite ministry support. The contrast was increasingly obvious and increasingly uncomfortable. "We need new robes for next year," Molly announced at dinner one evening. "Harry, you've grown 3 inches. Ron, you've grown 2. Your current robes won't fit." "Second-hand?" Arthur asked. "Second-hand," Molly confirmed. Harry spoke up carefully. "I could buy new robes. For both of us. From my vault." The table went quiet. Molly and Arthur exchanged one of their complex married people looks that conveyed entire conversations. "That's very generous, Harry," Arthur said finally. "But no. We manage our own expenses. But I have gold just sitting there doing nothing." "And it's your gold," Arthur interrupted gently. "For your future, not for us to use. You're my family. Doesn't that make it our gold?" "No," Molly said firmly. "It makes it your inheritance from your parents. We won't take that from you, even if I want to give it." "Especially then," Arthur said. "Harry, I understand you want to help. But we're your parents. We provide for you, not the other way around. That's how family works." Harry wanted to argue, wanted to point out that the Weasleys provided for him emotionally, but struggled financially. Wanted to say that sharing his gold wouldn't diminish his inheritance, would just help the people he loved. But he saw the pride in Arthur's eyes and the determination in Molly's expression, and knew this wasn't an argument he'd win. Ron, sitting beside him, muttered, "Told you they wouldn't take it. You asked before? Last Christmas. Wanted to use your gold to buy Mum a new cauldron." Dad said no. So they bought second-hand robes and made do with hand-me-down supplies and pretended the financial inequality didn't create tension, because that's what families did. They pretended the difficult things weren't difficult. Second year brought the Chamber of Secrets in terror that hit too close to home. Muggle-borns were being attacked, petrified, left like statues throughout the castle. Messages written in blood threatened that the enemies of the heir would be purged, and everyone suspected Harry. "Your parcel tongue," Hermione said during one of their increasingly frantic research sessions. "You spoke to that snake at the dueling club. People think you're the heir of Slytherin." "That's insane," Ron said loyally. Harry's not evil. I know that, but perception matters. Half the school thinks he opened the chamber. Harry couldn't argue with the logic. He'd discovered he could speak to snakes after inadvertently having a conversation with one during Lockhart's disastrous dueling demonstration. The whole school had witnessed it. Pureblood students started avoiding him. Muggleborns looked terrified when he passed. Even some Gryffindors were suspicious. Is it true? A second year asked in the common room. Are you really Slytherin's heir? No, Harry said tiredly. I don't even know how I can speak Parseltongue. It just happens. Dark wizards speak Parseltongue, the student said. Like you know who. Harry had no defense against that. Voldemort had been a Parselmouth. The ability was associated with dark magic and Slytherin's bloodline. People's suspicion made horrible sense even if it was completely wrong. The Weasley family rallied around him. Percy publicly defended Harry in front of the whole school, using his head boy authority to shut down rumors. The twins hexed anyone who called Harry the heir within their hearing. Bill sent a letter from Egypt reminding Harry that family loyalty mattered more than public opinion. Charlie sent a dragon scale bracelet for protection. And Ron punched Draco Malfoy in the face when Malfoy called Harry a dark wizard, earning a week's detention but 0 regret. You're my brother, Ron said when Harry tried to thank him. I don't care what anyone says. You're not evil. But the attacks continued. Colin Creevey, Justin Finch-Fletchley, Nearly Headless Mick, Hermione. Finding Hermione petrified in the library broke something in Harry. She'd been researching the chamber, trying to prove Harry's innocence, and she'd been attacked for it. He held her rigid hand and swore he'd find whoever did this. We need to find the chamber, Harry told Ron. We need to end this. The answer came from Hermione herself. Clutched in her petrified hand was a page about basilisks. Pipes, the note read in Hermione's handwriting. The monster uses pipes to move around the castle. Harry had been hearing voices all year, voices in the walls that no one else heard. Parseltongue voices, a basilisk moving through pipes, speaking a language only Harry understood. I've been hearing the monster, Harry realized. That's why I understood it. That's why people think I opened the chamber. I can hear it because I speak Parseltongue. When Ginny Weasley was taken into the chamber, Harry felt his world tilt sideways. Ginny, Ron's little sister. The Weasley daughter who'd finally come to Hogwarts this year, sorted into Gryffindor, sweet and shy, and now dragged into the chamber by whatever controlled the basilisk. Ron was devastated. We have to save her. Harry, we have to save Ginny. They found the entrance in Moaning Myrtle's bathroom. Harry spoke Parseltongue to open it, and they descended into the chamber with Lockhart, who promptly tried to obliviate them, got Ron's broken wand knocked from his hand by Ron himself, and ended up memory charmed by his own backfiring spell. Harry continued alone into the chamber's depths, finding Ginny unconscious and Tom Riddle's memory standing over her. What followed was revelation after revelation. Tom Riddle was Voldemort's younger self. The diary had possessed Ginny, forcing her to open the chamber and set the basilisk on Muggleborns. Riddle had used Ginny's pain and isolation, being the only Weasley daughter, the youngest child, constantly overshadowed, to manipulate her into becoming his weapon. She trusted me, Riddle said, poured her heart into my diary, told me all her secrets, how she felt invisible in a family of boys, how she loved the famous Harry Potter from afar, how she wished she were special like him. Harry felt rage build. This monster had used Ginny's insecurity and loneliness as a weapon, had turned her own family dynamics against her. She's a Weasley, Harry said. My sister. You don't get to hurt my family. Your family? Riddle laughed. You're not a Weasley, Harry. You're a Potter. You're famous and powerful and alone. Just like me. I'm nothing like you. The basilisk emerged. Harry fought with every lesson Charlie had taught him about facing dangerous creatures. Every spell he'd learned. Every ounce of Gryffindor courage. Fawkes arrived with the sorting hat. Harry pulled Gryffindor's sword from the hat and drove it through the basilisk's mouth into its brain. A fang pierced his arm. Basilisk venom flooded his system. He was dying. With his last strength, Harry grabbed the diary and stabbed it with the basilisk fang. Tom Riddle screamed and dissolved. Ginny woke up, and Fawkes cried tears onto Harry's wound, healing the venom before it could kill him. They emerged from the chamber to find Ron, a confused Lockhart, and a frantic Dumbledore waiting. Ginny collapsed into Ron's arms, sobbing apologies. "I'm sorry," she kept saying. "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to." The diary. "It made me—" "It's not your fault," Ron said fiercely. "None of this is your fault." Harry, still shaking from venom and adrenaline, looked at Dumbledore. "Tom Riddle. He was Voldemort. The diary was dark magic." "A Horcrux," Dumbledore said gravely. "A piece of soul, bound to an object. We'll discuss this in my office. But first, are you all right?" "I'll live," Harry said. Then, catching Ginny's eye, "We both will." The aftermath was complicated. Ginny was traumatized, blaming herself for the attacks despite everyone telling her she'd been possessed. Lucius Malfoy was revealed to have planted the diary on Ginny at Flourish and Blotts. The Weasley family rallied around Ginny with fierce, protective love. But the tension remained. Ginny had been vulnerable because she felt invisible in the family. Because being the only girl among 7 children, being the youngest, being constantly in her famous adopted brother's shadow, it had created pain that Tom Riddle exploited. At the Burrow that summer, Molly and Arthur had long conversations with Ginny about feeling valued and seen. About how family dynamics aren't always fair, but that doesn't mean anyone loved her less. About the importance of talking when you're struggling instead of suffering alone. Harry watched these conversations and felt guilt gnaw at him. His presence in the family had inadvertently hurt Ginny. His fame had created a shadow she'd struggled to escape. He'd been so focused on being Ron's brother that he'd never considered what it meant to be Jimmy's adopted brother too. "It's not your fault," Ginny said when Harry tried to apologize. "I was jealous and insecure, and that's on me." "You've been nothing but kind." "Still," Harry said, "I should have noticed you were struggling." "You're 12, Harry. You're not responsible for managing my feelings." But Harry couldn't shake the sense that his presence complicated the Weasley family in ways he couldn't fully predict or control. Third year brought Sirius Black and questions about loyalty Harry wasn't prepared to answer. "Mass murderer Sirius Black has escaped from Azkaban," the Daily Prophet announced. "Authorities warn he may be seeking Harry Potter." Arthur and Molly were frantic. Dementors were placed around Hogwarts. Security was increased. Harry was told repeatedly to be careful, to report any suspicious activity, to not take unnecessary risks. "Black was your godfather," Arthur explained carefully. "James and Lily named him guardian in their will. He was their best friend, and then he betrayed them to Voldemort." "So he wants to kill me to finish what Voldemort started?" Harry asked. "That's what the Ministry believes. Whether it's true," Arthur trailed off uncertainly. The Dementors were worse than Harry could have imagined. They brought cold and despair and the sound of his mother dying, a memory he'd never consciously had, but that lived somewhere deep in his mind. When a Dementor attacked him on the Hogwarts Express, Harry fainted. He woke to find Remus Lupin, the new defense professor, giving him chocolate and looking at him with complicated sadness. "You look remarkably like James," Lupin said. "Same hair, same build. But you have Lily's eyes." Over the year, Harry learned that Lupin had been his parents' friend. One of the Marauders, along with James, Sirius Black, and Peter Pettigrew. Lupin taught Harry the Patronus charm, working with him privately to master a spell most adults struggled with. "Why are you helping me?" Harry asked, after a particularly grueling session. "Because you're James and Lily's son," Lupin said simply. "Because I owe them more than I can ever repay. Because they would want you protected." The truth about Sirius came out in the Shrieking Shack in a confrontation that rewrote everything Harry thought he knew. Peter Pettigrew was alive, had been Ron's rat scabbers for 12 years. Sirius Black was innocent, had never betrayed the Potters, had been framed by Pettigrew. Harry's godfather had spent 12 years in Azkaban for crimes he didn't commit. "You're innocent," Harry said, staring at Sirius. "You didn't betray my parents." "Never," Sirius said hoarsely. "James was my brother. I would have died before betraying him." "Then you're my godfather, my legal guardian." Sirius looked at Harry with hunger and hope and fear. "If you want that. If you want to live with me instead of my family," Harry interrupted. "The Weasleys are my family. They raised me. They love me. I'm not leaving them." Sirius's face fell. "I understand. I have no legal claim anymore. The Weasleys adopted you formally when you were a baby. But Harry, I'm your godfather. Your father wanted me to raise you." "My father died when I was 15 months old," Harry said, not unkindly. "I don't remember him. The Weasleys are my parents. Molly is my mum. Arthur is my dad. I'm sorry, but that's not changing." The confrontation ended with Pettigrew escaping, transforming into a rat and fleeing before they could hand him to the Dementors. Sirius remained wanted, unable to prove his innocence without Pettigrew. "I don't blame you," Sirius told Harry before fleeing, "for choosing the family that raised you. But Harry, I'm here. If you ever need me, I'm your godfather, and I'll always be here." That summer brought difficult conversations at the Burrow. "Sirius Black is your godfather," Molly said carefully. "He has legal rights to you. If he were exonerated, he could claim guardianship." "I don't want him to," Harry said immediately. "You're my parents. I'm staying here." "But he's your connection to James and Lily," Arthur pointed out. "He knew your parents. He can tell you things we can't." "I know, and I want to know him. But as my godfather, not as my guardian. There's a difference." "We just want you to be certain," Molly said. "We love you. But we also want what's best for you. If that's serious." "It's you," Harry interrupted. "It's always been you. You're my family." They accepted his choice, but Harry couldn't escape the feeling that he was disappointing everyone, disappointing Sirius by rejecting him, disappointing his birth parents' memory by choosing the Weasleys, disappointing some hypothetical version of himself that should have wanted his real family. Fourth year brought the Triwizard Tournament, and danger that nearly destroyed everything. When Harry's name came out of the Goblet of Fire, despite him not entering, despite him being underage, the school divided sharply. Most students thought he'd cheated for glory. Even Ron initially believed Harry had found a way to enter without telling him. "You could have told me," Ron said, hurt evident. "We're brothers. I would have helped." "I didn't enter," Harry insisted. "Ron, you know I didn't want this attention. Why would I enter a deadly tournament?" "Because you're Harry Potter," Ron shot back. "Because you always end up in the middle of everything. Because maybe you wanted the glory." "I'm a Weasley before I'm a Potter," Harry said desperately. "You know that. I would never choose fame over family." But Ron's hurt and jealousy ran deeper than Harry realized. Being the youngest brother, always overshadowed, always wearing hand-me-downs, Ron had swallowed that resentment for years. Harry's fame made it worse. The tournament made it unbearable. They didn't speak for weeks. Harry faced the dragons and the lake and the maze without Ron's support. Hermione stood by him, but it wasn't the same. Ron was his brother. Ron's absence hurt more than anything the tournament threw at him. The maze changed everything. Cedric Diggory died. Voldemort returned, using Harry's blood in a ritual that brought him back to full power. The graveyard battle was brutal. Harry survived only through luck and his mother's protection. Returning to Hogwarts with Cedric's body, Harry collapsed. The trauma was immediate and overwhelming. He'd watched someone die, had been tortured, had dueled Voldemort and barely escaped. Ron was the first person to reach him in the chaos, dropping to his knees beside Harry with tears streaming down his face. "I'm sorry," Ron said desperately. "I'm so sorry I wasn't there. I should have been there. You're my brother, and I let jealousy—" "Not your fault," Harry managed. "Ron, he's back. Voldemort is back. I know. I believe you. I'm sorry I ever doubted you." The summer that followed was dark in ways none of them could have predicted. Voldemort was back, but the Ministry denied it. Fudge called Harry a liar and attention seeker. The Daily Prophet launched a smear campaign, "Boy Who Lived" or "Boy Who Lies." The Weasley family stood by Harry unequivocally. Arthur lost favor at the Ministry for defending him. Molly faced social ostracism for raising the disturbed Potter boy. The twins' joke shop ambitions were threatened by suppliers who refused to work with Weasley family members. "You can tell them I'm lying," Harry offered desperately. "Save yourselves the backlash." "Absolutely not," Molly said fiercely. "You're our son. We believe you. If the world wants to punish us for that, let them try." Fifth year brought Dolores Umbridge an institutional persecution that tested them all. Umbridge's blood quill left scars on Harry's hand that read, "I must not tell lies." Her educational decrees stripped students of rights. Her regime made Hogwarts a prison. Harry formed Dumbledore's army to teach actual defensive magic. Ron was his second in command. Hermione handled logistics. The Weasley twins provided supplies and cover. Even Ginny joined, having finally found her confidence after years of living in Harry's shadow. "This is what family does," Fred told Harry during one DA meeting. "We fight together. We protect each other," George added. The Department of Mysteries battle proved it. When Harry had a vision of Sirius being tortured, when he rushed to save his godfather, When it turned out to be a trap, the DA came with him. Ron, Hermione, Neville, Ginny, Luna. They fought Death Eaters to protect Harry and to defend what was right. Sirius died during that battle. Fell through the veil before Harry could save him. And Harry felt grief that was complicated and messy and overwhelming. He'd never fully accepted Sirius as family, had kept him at arm's length, had chosen the Weasleys over his godfather repeatedly, and now Sirius was dead, and Harry would never get the chance to fully understand what they could have meant to each other. "It's not your fault," Molly said, holding Harry while he cried. "Sirius made his own choices. He died protecting you because that's what family does. But I never really let him be family," Harry said. "I kept him distant because I already had you. What if he died thinking I didn't care about him?" "He died knowing you were loved and safe," Arthur said gently. "That's what he wanted. You being happy with us, that was his priority. He told me so himself." Sixth year brought Horcruxes and the knowledge that defeating Voldemort meant destroying pieces of his soul scattered across Britain. Dumbledore recruited Harry to help. They traveled together to retrieve the locket from the cave, both drinking the potion, both fighting in fury. They hunted for answers about Voldemort's past. "You're preparing me for war," Harry said during one of their private lessons. "I'm preparing you to survive," Dumbledore corrected. "The prophecy says you are the only one who can defeat Voldemort. That burden is unfair and terrible, but it's real. What if I can't do it? Then the Weasleys lose a son. The wizarding world loses a hero, and Voldemort wins. No pressure." Dumbledore's death devastated Harry in ways he couldn't process. The headmaster had been a constant presence, a mentor, someone who understood the weight Harry carried. With Dumbledore gone, Harry felt unmoored. The funeral brought everyone together. Bill and Fleur, engaged despite Fleur being part Vila, and Bill being scarred by Greyback. Charlie, home from Romania and looking older than his years. Percy, who'd been estranged from the family over ministry politics but returned for the funeral. The twins, quieter than Harry had ever seen them. Ron and Ginny holding Harry up when he threatened to collapse. "We're going Horcrux hunting," Harry told them after the funeral. "Ron, Hermione, and me. We're going to finish what Dumbledore started." "Not without backup," Bill said immediately. "We're coming," the twins said in unison. "The Order will coordinate," Arthur added. "You don't face this alone, Harry. I won't let you all risk your lives for me." "Your family," Molly said simply. "That means we fight for you. That means we stand with you. That means when war comes, we face it together." Seventh year didn't happen at Hogwarts. Harry, Ron, and Hermione spent it hunting Horcruxes while the wizarding world fell apart. The Ministry fell. Muggleborns were persecuted. Hogwarts became a Death Eater training ground. The Weasley family became fully involved in the resistance. Bill worked intelligence for the Order. Charlie recruited foreign allies. Percy returned to the family and used his ministry position to sabotage from within. The twins ran their joke shop as a cover for moving people and supplies. Arthur and Molly hid Muggleborns at the Burrow despite the risk, and Ginny, along with Neville and Luna, led student resistance at Hogwarts, protecting younger students, defying the Carrows, keeping hope alive. When Harry finally learned the truth, that he was a Horcrux himself, that he had to die for Voldemort to be defeated, he made his choice alone. He walked into the Forbidden Forest carrying the Resurrection Stone, called the shades of his parents, of Sirius, of Remus who died in the battle, asked them if it hurt. "Not in the way you fear," Lily said. "We're proud of you, Harry, so proud." "The Weasleys love you," James added. "They raised you well, better than we could have managed." "Be brave," Sirius said, "and know that choosing them over me was the right choice. Family is who loves you, not who shares your blood." Harry faced Voldemort and let the killing curse hit him, died. Woke in a white space that might have been King's Cross Station, or might have been his own mind. Spoke with Dumbledore's shade, or his own conscience, or whatever force governed magic, and love, and sacrifice. "You can go on," Dumbledore told him, "or you can go back. If I go back, can I defeat him? You already have. The Horcrux is destroyed. You're no longer bound to him. The rest is just cleanup. Then I'm going back. I have a family waiting for me." He woke in the Forbidden Forest, pretended to be dead while Voldemort carried him to Hogwarts in triumph, heard Molly scream when she saw his body, heard Ron sob, heard Ginny's sharp intake of breath. When Neville pulled Gryffindor's sword from the sorting hat and killed Nagini, Harry revealed himself alive. The battle resumed. And in the Great Hall, with everyone watching, Harry Potter faced Voldemort for the final time. "I died for them," Harry said. "Just like my mother died for me. That protection extends to everyone here now. You can't hurt them, Tom. You've already lost." The Elder Wand refused to kill its master. Voldemort's curse rebounded. He died, truly and permanently, and the war ended. In the aftermath, covered in blood and barely standing, Harry was mobbed by his family. Molly reached him first, pulling him into a hug that cracked his ribs. Arthur was right behind her. Ron grabbed him next, crying openly. Hermione held both of them. Jimmy kissed him, quick and fierce. Bill clapped his shoulder. Charlie lifted him off his feet in a bear hug. Percy actually smiled. The twins declared him the best Weasley ever. "You died," Molly said, touching his face as if to confirm he was real. "I saw you dead." "I got better," Harry said, and shocked himself by laughing. They rebuilt. The wizarding world healed slowly. The Weasley family remained close-knit and chaotic and loving. Harry and Ginny married young, too young by some standards, but they'd faced death enough times to know that waiting for the right time was foolish when you'd found the right person. They had 3 children, James Sirius, Albus Severus, and Lily Luna, named for the people who'd shaped Harry's life. Ron married Hermione, surprising no one. They had Rose and Hugo and raised them with the same fierce love the Weasleys had shown Harry. The Burrow remained the center of everything. Sunday dinners with everyone crammed around the extended table. Holidays with more people than beds. Chaos and love and the certain knowledge that family meant everything. On platform 9 3/4 years later, Harry watched his children prepare to board the Hogwarts Express. James was showing off, Rose was lecturing Albus about house pride, and Lily was holding Molly and Arthur's hands while they promised to write every week. "Ready?" Ginny asked, sliding her hand into Harry's. "Getting there," Harry said. Ron appeared beside them with Hermione. "Strange, isn't it? Sending them off to Hogwarts." "Terrifying," Hermione corrected. "I've been having nightmares about all the dangerous things they might encounter." "They'll be fine," Harry said, watching Albus nervously board the train. "They're Weasleys. Weasleys are always fine." "Even the adopted ones?" Ron teased. "Especially the adopted ones," Harry said, because that was the truth he'd learned over 17 years of living with the Weasleys, fighting beside them, building a life with them. Family wasn't about blood or names or legal guardianship. Family was about choice and love and showing up when it mattered. Lily and James Potter had given Harry life. Sirius Black had wanted to give him a connection to that legacy. But Molly and Arthur Weasley had given him something more fundamental. They'd given him a family. They'd taken an orphaned baby on a cold November night and made him their son. They'd raised him with hand-me-down robes and homemade jumpers and love that never wavered even when the world turned against him. They'd stood by him through fame and danger and war. They'd made him a Weasley, and being a Weasley meant being part of something larger than himself. Meant belonging to a chaotic, loving, imperfect family that would fight for him no matter what. The train pulled away. Harry waved to his children until they were out of sight. Molly appeared beside him. Older now, hair more gray than red, but still the woman who'd raised 7 boys with fierce love. "They'll be brilliant," Molly said, watching the train disappear. "Just like their father." "Just like all of us," Harry corrected. "We're all brilliant. That's what being a Weasley means." Molly pulled him into a hug. Arthur joined from the other side. Ron grabbed Harry's shoulder. Ginny held his hand. The rest of the family gathered close. Bill and Fleur, Charlie, Percy and his wife Audrey, George, still feeling Fred's absence but learning to live with it, and all the nieces and nephews who'd never known a world at war. They stood together on the platform, this chosen family that had saved the wizarding world through the simple act of loving a famous orphan as their own. "What if things had been different?" Harry asked quietly. "What if Dumbledore had left me with the Dursleys? What if you'd never taken me in?" "But we did," Molly said simply. "We chose you, you chose us. That's all that matters." "Family is choice," Arthur added. "Blood or not, you're ours, Harry, always." And Harry Potter, who'd spent 37 years being a Weasley, who'd lived more of his life as their son than as anything else, felt the truth of that settle into his bones. He was the boy who lived. The chosen one? The wizard who defeated Voldemort, but more than any of that, more fundamentally than fame or prophecy or destiny, he was a Weasley, and that would always be enough.